This is a tutorial on using the Teaching Pyramid Observation Tool data entry spreadsheet. When you first open up the spreadsheet, you may get a message to enable editing. If you do, go ahead and enable that. This will allow you to use the file and to enter data. The first tab is the instruction tab, and you'll see that there are a couple of other tabs down at the bottom. If you don't see them, then you can use the arrows that are down on the bottom left hand corner in order to scroll through the different tabs. So the instruction tabs gives you detailed instructions on data entry. It shows you all of the fields and what you can enter in each of them. It also has my email in case you have any questions or concerns as you use the data entry spreadsheet. The next tab is the customization tab. This tab is very important, and you'll want to read through this and decide on the customizations before you start data entry. So the first thing that you want to do is decide on a common administration period. So what this is a field that helps you sort your data by a common date. So we know that teachers don't have a common TPOT date. You may be TPOTing teachers across 5, 6, 7 different days. And so when you look at your data, you want to have a date or some type of common period that you know you collected that data. So, and it's usually a time frame, and it's how the teacher data is actually grouped. So this is really important. So it's up to the program to decide how they want to group this. So you can group it by a time period. So you can say fall, spring, summer. You can use TPOT 1, TPOT 2, TPOT 3. You can use a range. It's up to you what you want to use, but this is how teachers are grouped together. So in this example, we use fall and spring because in the fall, we know that the teachers that were TPOTed could have been TPOTed anytime during the fall. But for our purposes, they will be grouped together. So this is the first thing that you want to do. You want to go ahead and type in what that common date is so that when you're doing data entry, you'll be able to select it. So we have 10 slots that you can use. You do not have to use all 10, and you can update as you need them. So you can go ahead and add fall, spring, or whatever you're using, and then update as you need. The next thing is optional fields. So you have 3 available fields to customize. So we've named them cohort, coach ID, and program type. So on the data tab, you'll see these 3 columns that show up: cohort, coach ID, and program type. You do not have to use them. If you don't want to use them, you can skip them, but if you do want to use them, then they're there. So the way that these work are that you decide as a program what the options are for that column. So if you're going to use cohort may be a group of teachers who are receiving coaching across a shared time interval. So you might have cohort 1 and cohort 2. Coach ID. So if your program has multiple coaches and you want to track all your TPOTs in one place, then you might have a unique ID to identify each coach, because maybe in one of the tabs, maybe you want to look at data by coach ID. Program type. So this is just a program type or category that you can use to identify some type of characteristic of the program. So let's say you have Head Start classrooms, then maybe you might differentiate in this column between classrooms that are Head Start and not Head Start, or something to that effect. So that's how you might use these optional fields. Like I said, it's not necessary for you to use them, but they are there if you do want to use them. So let's take a look at TPOT data entry. That's the next tab. So the first thing that you enter is your program ID, followed by the teacher ID. And then these are the 3 columns that are optional: cohort, coach ID, and program type. So what's really important in the cohort, coach ID, and program type columns is that once you've made a decision on what you want to use for this, that you always are consistent. So if I only have 2 cohorts, make sure that I'm always typing 1 or 2, and that I'm not typing in, let's say, a letter, because then now when I look at the different cohorts, I'm going to have cohort 1, cohort 2, and cohort M. So just make sure that you are consistent in the spelling, in the capitalization, and in the spacing. So a cohort might be, if you actually do cohort 1 and you do cohort 1, these are 2 different cohorts, because in the first cohort 1 there is no space between the T and the 1, and in the second one there is. So Excel will look at that as 2 different groups. So that's why it's very important that you use the same entry. The coach ID, it's the same idea, just make sure that you're consistent in the program type. If you do not want to use these, you do not have to. You can just skip over them. The date, that's just the date of your TPOT. And then the common administration period is a drop down. So you can just scroll up and you'll see your different choices. And then the choices that appear here are the choices that you typed up here. So if you do not see, if you're in data entry and you don't see the one that you need, it's probably because it's not typed in here. So make sure to check that. Then, as far as data entry, you're entering each item individually. So we start with SR1, and then you're going to go ahead and say yes or no, and you'll do that all the way across. Make sure that you don't type in yes and you don't type in no, that you're only typing in the Y or the N. And so that is all the way across. Again, that's for each option. So you also have the ability to do and not observed for those that have that option on your paper score form. So we'll just show you here. We'll go all the way across. Then you'll see that once you get into those interview items, you have the option of yes reported, yes observed, yes reported and observed, or no. So you can make sure to select one. And so that is all the way across. And then you're back to the yeses or nos, and then you're into your red flags. So your red flags, yes or no, same thing. And then for item 32, you're going to either say your final score is either a yes, a no, or no incidents observed, and then you're going to record how many incidents. So if you had incidents, make sure that you record that here. And that's your data entry. So then each row is equal to 1 TPOT. So then after you've entered your data, now you can look at data by teacher. So the individual summary allows you to do that. It allows you to look at each individual teacher and each administration period. So you have a filter here, the teacher ID, where you can select to just look at one teacher ID if you'd like, multiple teacher IDs. As you select a teacher ID, it will show you which administration dates they have data for, all of the key practices, and then the averages across. Average across the key practices. You'll also have a bar chart here that will show you that same information. One thing to remember to do, and you have a little note here to remind you, every single time you enter data, you want to make sure that the first thing you do is come up to this chart. You can click this table. Anywhere in the table you can click. You'll go up to Pivot Table Tools. This is a new tab. Click Analyze, Refresh, Refresh All. Once you do that, all of these charts and tables will be refreshed with the data that you just entered. So that is very important every single time you enter data to do that. So if you just want to look at one teacher, you can just click on the one teacher and then it'll show you whatever data you have available for that teacher. If you want to look at more than one teacher, what you do is you hold down your control key on your keyboard and then you can click on that other teacher that you want to see. So if you only want to see these two teachers, then you click on the first, and then you hit your control key, and you click on the other teacher, and then it'll show you both of those teachers. As you scroll down, then you'll have the red flags. So it'll show you for the administration period, the teacher ID, how many red flags that teacher received. It also shows you a chart so that you can see, so you can visualize that same data. And then as you scroll down, it tells you which red flag. So we saw up here that teacher 20307 had 5 red flags in the spring. So if I scroll down and I look at 20307, that number 1 tells me that that was a red flag. So red flag number 15, that's RF15, was scored yes. My other one is red flag 19 was scored yes. Red flag 23 was scored yes. Red flag 24 was scored yes, and red flag 25 was scored a yes. So this breaks down all of the red flags and tells you which red flag the teacher has a yes. So then as you scroll down, now you get into the challenging behavior. So the challenging behavior tells you how many incidents were observed for that teacher. So for 20307, there were 2 incidents observed. Were all essential strategies used? The 0 means no. All essential strategies used? No. The 1 means yes, so that was her score, that all essential strategies were not used. And then if no incidents were observed, then this would be a 1. But since 2 incidents were observed and her score was that no, all essential strategies were not used. And then here it just gives you across, if she had multiple observations, then you can see here total number of incidents observed and what her score was. And so that is your individual teacher summary. So you would just click on one teacher and then you can see all of that data for that teacher. Alright, so then the program summary tab gives you a summary across all of your teachers. So on this tab, if you have the comment about refreshing. However, if you already refreshed on the individual summary, you do not need to refresh here again. Once you do refresh all on the individual summary, so I'll show you that, analyze, refresh, you have 2 options, either to refresh or refresh all. If you do refresh, it will only refresh that chart, but if you do refresh all, it'll refresh all of the data in the spreadsheet. So I always suggest to do a refresh all. So the program summary, you have a table here with all of your key practices and then your common administration period. So you see how important it is to make sure that you have that you define those periods with something that makes sense to you. So for fall 2017, for all teachers who had a TPOT in the fall of 2017, these are their average scores. It gives you the percentage of indicators observed by key practices, again, by your common admin dates. It gives you the total number of red flags across all of your teachers. It gives you that chart. And then it tells you which red flags. So for fall, you had 1 teacher who got red flag 15, 2 teachers had red flag 19, 1 teacher had red flag 30. And so that kind of gives you the breakdown by red flag. And then it gives you that a bar chart as well, so that you can kind of see which are the red flags that teachers might be commonly receiving. And then as you scroll down, that's it. So you're able here to filter by cohort. So if you used, so here are your 3 different columns that were optional. So if you did use the cohort, you'll have whatever you typed in. If you typed in cohort 1, cohort 2, whatever you typed in, it will show up here as an option for you to filter your data. Coach ID. If you used Coach ID, it'll show up here. If you had a program type, it'll show up here. And you're also able to filter by common administration period. So if you want to just look at cohort 1 teachers, you can select cohort 1, and then all of your charts and tables will update to cohort 1. And then it will show you if you have fall and spring data, whatever admin period for that cohort, that will show up. And then cohort 2, you can look at that as well. If you want to look by coach ID, you can. By program type, or by common administration period. And you can use the filters. So if I do, you saw that I selected program type E, and then I just wanted to look at fall 2017. So you can select multiple filters based on what it is that you want to see. And then to clear that filter, you would just click on the little filter icon here. If you have this show up where it says blank, that is actually no data. So the way that you get rid of this is that you would click on that arrow and you would uncheck blank, and that will remove it from your tables and your graphs. So it will show up, and that's just part of the system, but you can easily remove it by clicking on the filter and then removing the check mark from where it says blank. The next tab is the Fidelity tab. So the Fidelity summary gives you a table that shows you which teachers, what's their average across key practices and the total number of red flags, so that you can see who is at Fidelity. So Fidelity is defined as an average across key practices of 70% or more and 0 red flags. So this table doesn't highlight anything for you, it just gives you an at a glance of where all of the teachers are at by administration period, and then you can see who might be at Fidelity or not. You also have the darker next to their ID, gives you an average across however many administration periods they have, and a sum of red flags. So you'll see teacher 20703, she had an average of 43% in the fall, 37% in the spring. Across both of her TPOTs, her average is 40%. So you can also here filter by any of these filters. So if you only want to see cohort 1 teachers, you can. If you only want to see program type C, you can. If you only want to see one of the administration periods, you can do that as well. And again, you have the comment about refreshing, but if you already refreshed all, then you do not need to refresh again. The next tab is the item by item analysis. So this tab here goes through each one of the items and tells you how many teachers scored a no on that item. So you have a couple of filters. You can filter this tab by teacher ID, by cohort, by program type, or by common administration period. And so what it gives you, and you'll see that the blank is here again, so I'm going to go ahead and remove that. What it gives you, the first thing it gives you is a table. It shows you all of the indicators by administration period. And so it tells you SR1 in the fall, no teachers scored SR1 and no, or were scored no, but in the spring, 3 teachers were scored no on SR1, and it gives you a grand total. So this is 2 teachers, SR2, 3 teachers in the spring, 5 total. So it allows you to see, which indicators might be an issue in your program. As you scroll to the right, now it breaks it down by each. So schedules, routines, and activities. SR1, it tells you, okay, teacher 20307, she received a no score in the spring. SR2, she received a no score in the spring, and then so on and so forth. So you can see like 20702, for example, they received a no on SR4 in the fall, but in the spring they received a yes. So you can see the breakdown that way, by teacher, and then by, it has all of the indicators, and then that's the practice, and then no. The N is no, means no, that it was scored a no. Then here you have the same thing, transitions between activities are appropriate, promoting children's engagement, and again the 1 means that yes, this was scored no. And then the bolded numbers is just the sum of the administration periods. So here 20703, ENG 6, there are 2 administration periods where this teacher received a score of no. The administration periods here, fall and spring. You can also minimize these if you wanted, and if you just wanted to see a cumulative, then you would just click on this little negative sign, and then it just shows you across the administration periods this was their score. So if you want to see the detail, you just click on the little plus sign. So this really gives you all of the data. So it just depends how many teachers you have entered, how many administration periods, and then you can filter if you would like. So this goes through all 14 practices. So this spreadsheet has a lot of different things that you can do. If one of the things that in the optional fields, if you want to have a drop down just like you have here, that is something that you can do. I would suggest contacting me if you don't know how to do that, and we can I can set that up for you. If you have any questions or you have any issues as you're entering data or using the spreadsheet, please feel free to send me an email. And again, my email is on the instruction tab.